the same trends in the black male circles as I'm seeing with the black woman. And I'm not trying to talk against the black woman's journey. With child welfare here, the least adopted child in our county is a black boy. In our county, the highest number of suspensions is still the black boy. The
Okay.
highest number of dropouts is still. So you're seeing all these numbers that would argue that there's so much work to be done to whoever's original point. I'm sorry, I went on a tangent on this.
No, no, no. I agree with you, but my counter argument to that is that ultimately black men are not taught properly in schools, right? We learn differently because we have a different subset of experiences. For one, we are men, right? And so we get disregarded. And just because I'm not trying to put down black women, but there's a lot more support for black women than there is for black men. You even said it yourself, right? There's a lot more up there. So when we put out these statistics and say black women are more educated, that's great. How are we determining that education? I know a lot of smart black men, intelligent black men that didn't go to college or dropped out of college. College is not the only one way to find out or to highlight education and experience. I don't think we do enough for our black boys. If you look at black boys in younger systems, right? Boys in general learn slower. And it seems like our community hasn't caught up with that. The little black boys are they're gonna need more time with learning reading. They're gonna need more time with math. And I know that starts at home, right? But we have an entire system that has disenfranchised black male youth, right? So when we're looking at these statistics, I don't think they're even fair. That we don't really highlight the good points of black males. Even when you look on the news, if there's a crime, it's always a black male. And that's not by design. There's crimes committed consistently, but the crimes that are committed consistently aren't as entertaining, right? So they don't put them on the news. I think black male youth is doing great, but we do not highlight it, give it as much attention or love that we should be giving it to young black males. In fact, we purposely disenfranchise black fathers on a consistent basis, right? And one of the reasons I asked you about you becoming mayor is because as a position in leadership, one of the biggest issues that black males have is fatherhood and how we're disenfranchised in fatherhood. And that's not spoken about enough, especially in a public space, a national public space, as it comes to our parties and our representatives. And I apologize if it sounds like I'm passionate or angry. I'm really not.
No,
It's just something I really care about. That's
no,
not
no,
discussed
that's down
enough.
my alley. Yeah, yeah. No, that's down my alley. So, I brought my son with me everywhere I went. So any picture you saw me in, my son was there. And people would ask, "Why is your son always with you?" I was like, one, I need y'all to see that. Like that's something I need you to see. My son is meaningful to me. How he see me is meaningful to me. If I can be in a space, he can be in a space. There's a way in which I want him to see the world. There's a level of confidence I want him to have when he engages the world, and I think it's valuable that he be present in these spaces. So I always brought my son with me, but also my own personal research is around the father. So I worked with our child welfare during that time to do a research evaluation. And 90% of the employees in our county that's employed as social workers are black women. And so we started to have a conversation. Why are we seeing um, a reduced engagement of black fathers in child welfare? Why are we seeing a reduced number of black boys adopted by black men? Why are we seeing? We started asking these same things you're talking about. And they started talking. They started talking about the history. There's several things that came out. Number one, in child welfare, they used to arrest. I'm only talking about my journey, so I don't want to cast that out to all child welfare. But one of the things that came out is that they used to arrest fathers for previous either incidents that has to do with law enforcement, or they were penalized for child support. And so engaging with their child became inverse or opposed to engaging with child support. So the father, based on how much money he can find and support his kid, depended on if he's going to engage or not. The next thing that we found is that um, the father himself was often at birth, when the child was born, the father was not engaged in collecting information about that child as the mother was. If the mother didn't like the father, the staff, the social worker never engaged the father. If the mother did not want the father involved, the staff never even talk to the father or the father's family. If they can't find the father, they never go to the father's grandmother, never go to the father's mother. So you're talking about a generational story of how that voice of the father slowly has diminished to the point where you have to be energized and bring it to people's attention in 2023.
Is that
Yeah, and I
a
agree with
platform
you.
that you wish to speak to?
Say it again.
Is that a platform that you would speak to when if you run again?
I mean, I have. I mean, so local government is. So I was a principal. Prior to being a professor, I was a principal in an alternative school. And in that school, I was embedded in like juvenile justice center. So when I go to work, I will wake the kids up out of their bunk. I will time them in the shower. I will march them to get food to eat, and then I would teach. Most people would never see a school like that. Most people would think of ISS when they think of alternative school. But I was in juvenile justice system, the criminal justice system, teaching kids. And I have no control over the kids who come to me. But when I was I had my bachelor's degree. What caused me to go get my master's and my doctorate was I began to see me over and over again. I was seeing brothers, I was seeing fathers, I was seeing, I mean, generations of family members coming through my program. And I began to ask, why is our society producing this outcome? And then more granular, why is our cities producing this outcome? More granular, why is our communities and neighborhoods producing this outcome where I get the same Black boy profile every time? And my question was, are other profiles not doing anything bad? Like, are they just perfect? And I also never received a wealthy kid, Black or white. I never received a wealthy kid. So I was like, if you become wealthy, do you become perfect? Like, if you don't do no wrong? Like, these are the things as a young 21-year-old just graduated that I began to process. And that's what actually drove me to go get my master's and PhD. But that's really at the core of my research. I wrote a series of papers called A Letter to My Son. And it was around these same issues, a 10-letter series. And it was around the same thing. So that's actually a personal passion of mine rather than any sort of campaign or political ambition.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is like within that region, I mean, even though, yeah, so even though this is anecdotal, when I have a fiance and I'm a stepfather to two beautiful children. I have my own son. When I went to go register those kids in the school, I went with my fiance. Not one woman in that administration even acknowledged my existence until there was a conflict and I had to stand. And what I've noticed throughout my life, being a stepfather and father, is that we are ignored, disenfranchised, forgot about, excluded consistently. Because my son has been in YDC. So when it came to those meetings, I was an afterthought, right? And so I guess one of the things that bothers me so much is that when I hear that Black women are the most educated, et cetera, it's those same Black faces, especially being in Atlanta, those Black women faces that ignored me, that disenfranchised me and disregarded me, right? We don't talk about that enough in the community. We don't even highlight it enough. And like that being one of your passions and your campaign, I would love to see another Black man up on a stage pointing out these issues that we have, because this is one of our biggest problems and we're never going to get it fixed if we continue to push it under the rug like we've been doing. I've met so many Black fathers who are involved in their child's life through the child support system to fatherhood programs that do not get any highlight, do not get any mention. These stories need to be heard. These stories should be at the highlight of the Black community because there are fathers working 5 jobs just to take care of one kid because of this system we have. But then we sit here and say Black men aren't stepping up. We sit here and say Black men are at the forefront. Black men aren't in these statistics. And not in these statistics because you're looking at the wrong information to get the knowledge that you want to know. And we as our Black leaders, one of the things that bothers me about them is they continue to perpetuate this negative stereotype about Black men and not give us the highlighting references that we need to show Black excellence in Black fatherhood. Black excellence as Black men. We ignore it. And that's one of the reasons that I just can't get with a lot of these systems, because they just perpetuate the same nonsense over and over again. You don't fight for me, you fight for her.
if you're in Atlanta, you have one of the top scholars on Black fathers. Her name is Dr. Cry Coupe. She just was hired by Georgia, not Georgia State. Yeah, Georgia State University. And she was a professor here at NC State. I'm mentioning her, Dr. Cry Coupe, because her whole study is about Black fathers. So what she did is she went back and said, how are we measuring good? Good is a relative term. That means you got to compare it to something else. This chicken wing is good because I've tasted others that are not as good. But if I say that this chicken wing is good, it tells you nothing about the chicken wing. I have to compare it to something else. So when you say this father is good or bad, then in your mind, whether you're consciously or subconsciously thinking it, you're comparing it to something else. So she went back to say, what are we measuring? Why are we saying bad and good for Black men? What are we measuring? So there are traditional ways in which that sciences, the academic world, would measure a good family, a good father, a good Black man. And so she began to challenge those. And in her research, it ended up, and this is contemporary research, ended up saying that the Black father is the most engaged father of all fathers. And I think they were particularly focusing on um, the fathers who are not in the home but are still connected to their kids' lives. But they said the Black father is the most engaged. But they wasn't measuring how many hours are you at the table. It wasn't measuring, how many, hours did you read to your son at this time. And they were measuring sneakerheads and how much they were educating their kids on the business behind that entrepreneurial model. I mean, her research is amazing. I don't even want to do it injustice for trying to summarize it. But there are scholars out there that's ripping that standard family, model apart to say that there are other ways to measure engaged fathers and engaged Black men, and they're screaming to the hilt, but it's still that exclusive academic, world.
Well, hello, my name is Ryder. I hopped in a little bit late, but I want to say that from this conversation, I'm really enthusiastic and thrilled that we're having this conversation because it really needs to be talked about. But when I want to come in, what you just said is really, really valid. At the end of the day, what do we want the end result to be? That should be really the ultimate question. And is this a good father or not? Is the father present? And good is but if you look back and if go back to your and say, if I had a father figure in there, if I didn't, were they good or bad? You would say yes or no based on how you feel. And then from there, you'd say, why this way about my parent being a good or bad? And, it really is a relative term because let's say if you do a good father, spending time with them, providing, making sure the family, okay, these things are standard. But can this person meet that standard given what they had in their lives prior to becoming a father? The question really does get complicated. And then, I'm on the notion of, education. And like right now, they're saying, and I know this because in my field too, Black women are like predominantly, like, as far as this goes, are the ones becoming, in the profession, and Blacks are like very little to small. I mean, Black males are very little to small. But you have to ask yourself the question, why is this a thing? Why is this happening? And, a lot of Black males don't get those to say that this outcome is possible. Let me achieve this. Or saying that, I've never seen anybody do this before, but I have forced to achieve this, and most, Black, like, the product of education is what ultimately it should be a productive citizen. What is a productive citizen? Get a good job, make a good amount of money. You're taking care of yourself and you're contributing to society. That's it, right? Bare bones. And we have to ask ourselves the question, is our society producing this in the Black male? Because we got Black, Asian male, Caucasian, like Hispanic. We have a whole bunch. Is society doing their part to produce these productive citizens? If so, why not? And really, the nation is speaking up and is doing something about it because they are choosing different professions, different careers, and they want to set out on their own adventure of life in their own definition.
I don't think that the black male will ever